On the 23rd of January, 2003, 7 days after launch, an engineer at NASA sent an email, just one sentence. He wrote, "Can we petition? Beg for outside agency assistance?" His name was Rodney Rocha. He wanted one clear photograph of the Space Shuttle Columbia. Just one. He did not know how little time was left. And that was the point. He knew NASA did not know enough. And some of the possibilities were very bad. His request was denied. 9 days later, 7 astronauts were dead. This is the story of the warnings NASA had and chose to ignore. For 16 days, Columbia orbited Earth. For 16 days, the crew worked, slept, laughed, filmed messages for their kids back home. For 16 days, a wound no one could see waited inside the left wing. And inside NASA, a small group of engineers kept asking for one thing. Not certainty, not panic, a look. They feared the heat shield could be breached. They asked, they pushed, they were overruled. This is what happened in those 16 days, and it should never have happened at all. The 16th of January, 2003, 10:39 a.m. Eastern Time. Columbia lifts off.
And liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with a multitude of national and international space research experiments.
On board, 7 astronauts. Commander Rick Husband, Pilot Willie McCool, Michael Anderson, Kalpana Chawla, David Brown, Laurel Clark, and Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli to fly to space. The launch looks perfect.
To 72% of rated performance.
But at 81.7 seconds after liftoff, a piece of insulating foam breaks off the external tank. The size of a briefcase, about 1.7 pounds, moving at roughly 500 miles per hour relative to the shuttle. For 0.2 of a second, it tumbles through the air. Then it strikes Columbia's left wing. No one inside the shuttle feels it. No one in mission control sees it live. The mission continues. But the next morning, at Marshall Space Flight Center, photo analysts review the launch tape, frame by frame. And at 9:30 a.m., they see something that should not have happened. A chunk of foam vanishing under the left wing, then debris emerging on the other side. The wing has been hit, and no one yet knows how badly. This is where the story becomes unforgivable. Because Columbia was not NASA's first warning. Foam had fallen before.
Discovery now flying on the
just
singular
2 flights earlier. On STS-112, foam had broken loose and left a 4-inch wide, 3-inch deep dent in solid metal hardware. NASA classified foam loss as an accepted flight risk. That phrase matters, because once danger becomes accepted, people stop treating it like danger. After Columbia's strike, the warning moves up the chain. A team is assembled. They call it the Debris Assessment Team. One of its co-chairs is Rodney Rocha, Senior Structural Engineer at Johnson Space Center. In 2025, Rocha finally sat down and told the world exactly what happened.
I did not know this, but during that weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, shuttle managers had already been meeting with contractors, and they were getting lots of messages saying everything's okay. This is no big deal. It's not dangerous. We on the debris assessment team we didn't know this was happening. This was behind the scenes. So they were already, I call it poisoning the waters. I talked to the thermal engineers. I found a couple of them. I said, had you heard the news? They go, oh yeah, we heard. Wing has been hit. I said, well, how bad can this be? And one of them looked at me gravely. I remember he was Dr. Don Curry. He said, we could lose the vehicle over this. If these specialists in my organization are that worried, then I'm worried.
And he reaches the conclusion NASA management was not ready to face. If that foam hit the wing's reinforced carbon-carbon panels, the heat shield could be breached. And if the heat shield is breached, Columbia may not survive re-entry. Rocha does not need certainty. He needs evidence. He does not need a rescue plan yet. He just needs one photograph. The U.S. military had the ability to image objects in orbit. Ground-based telescopes. National assets. Enough to reduce the uncertainty.
We all agreed unanimously. We need an extra image, a different angle, an image independent or something else.
3 imagery requests go up the chain. All 3 are stopped. Mission Management Team Chair Linda Ham holds a review. She cancels the imagery request. Her reason? It had not gone through official channels. A phone call to the Pentagon ends without a photograph. And on January 23rd, at 4:41 in the afternoon, Rodney Rocha writes the sentence that should haunt NASA forever. Can we petition, beg for outside agency assistance? Some of the possibilities are very bad. He sends it to his managers. It never reaches the people who needed to hear it. He later said he felt completely alone.
And I was very careful in framing that. I said we need to coordinate. We agree that we need this. We unanimously want all this. Outside image assistance. That's that email that I wrote. I found that, and I put several people on that email and CC'd a bunch of managers. No reply, nothing, silent. It just went into the void.
That he did not know what else to do. That it was the most haunting moment of his life. CAIB later counted the missed chances. Not 1, not 2, 8. 8 moments where NASA could have looked harder. 8 moments where a warning could have become action. Instead, Boeing engineers run a damage analysis using software called Crater, a program built for tile damage. Calibrated for debris weighing less than 1 pound, Columbia's foam weighed 1.7. The model was operating outside its range. It returns a result anyway. No safety of flight issue. The mission management team accepts the result. The crew is told about the foam strike, but they are reassured. They are told there is no concern for re-entry. They are not told how uncertain the analysis really is. They are not told that engineers were still asking for one better look. There is everything to worry about. Here is what NASA did not know, because it never got the image. A 6 to 10 inch breach had been torn through the leading edge of Columbia's left wing, right through reinforced carbon-carbon panel number 8. A wound that during re-entry would let in air heated to more than 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And here is the part of this story that still hurts. The crew may have had one chance, a rescue mission, but only if NASA had acted on day 4. After the disaster, the Columbia Accident Investigation Board asked the impossible question. What if they had confirmed the damage early? What if they had acted? The answer is in CAIB Appendix D13, STS-107, In-Flight Options Assessment. And it is heartbreaking. Columbia was locked in a 39-degree orbit. The International Space Station was unreachable. The fuel to change orbits did not exist on board. But sitting at Kennedy Space Center was Space Shuttle Atlantis, already being prepared for its next mission. Under an emergency rescue scenario, Atlantis could potentially launch around February 9 or 10. A 4-person crew, 2 pilots, 2 spacewalkers. The limiting factor was time. Columbia carried lithium hydroxide canisters, the chemical that scrubbed carbon dioxide from the cabin air. With extreme power-down procedures, the crew could potentially survive until February 15, flight day 30. They had food, water, power. They had time. They could have powered down the orbiter, stayed in their bunks, breathed slowly, waited. Maybe they could have come home.
Now we play volleyball. Oops. Get back here. And do that again. Now we play volleyball. And football. And baseball. Hey, better. 0G baseball. You're supposed to catch it, Elon. And soccer. Bicycle kick.
Wow, Willie, that was impressive.
What else can we do? We got soccer, we got football, we got baseball.
But for that chance to exist, the decision had to begin early. By flight day 5, the clock was not just ticking, it was collapsing. Months later, in her first public statement, Linda Ham told CBS News she stopped the imagery request because she could not find who asked for it. By then, the rescue window was already brutal. By the time Rocha's warning was buried, it was nearly gone. And by the time Columbia turned for home, no one in the decision chain understood what was waiting inside that wing, except the engineers who had warned them, and no one had listened. The 1st of February 2003, 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time. Columbia begins its descent. At 400,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean, it reaches the edge of the atmosphere. Re-entry begins. Inside the left wing, the breach opens. 5,000-degree plasma starts flooding in. It melts structure. It destroys wiring. It begins burning the wing from the inside. In mission control, at 8:54 a.m., the first sensors fail. Hydraulic temperature readings on the left wing drop to 0. At 8:59 a.m., tire pressure indicators on the left main gear go offline. Capcom calls Columbia. Commander Husband responds.
Yeah, Houston, we see your tire pressure messages, and we did not copy
Is it
your last.
instrumentation, Max?
Flight Max, those are also off
Columbia, Houston, comm check.
He never finishes the word.
Columbia, Houston, UHF, comm check.
No one ever hears his voice again. Fire trails up the sky behind her. Columbia is burning. Less than a minute later, 200,000 feet above Texas, at Mach 18, Columbia tears itself apart.
Shuttle would normally light up in re-entry because of the heat of the friction of the Earth's atmosphere. But then we began to see this.
You'll notice here, it looks like you can see pieces of the shuttle coming off.
Pieces of the shuttle coming off, and NASA, we can confirm that the shuttle is behind schedule. It was to land in Florida. There you see what appears to be multiple pieces of the shuttle.
The wing fails first. The orbiter rolls. The crew module separates from the rest of the vehicle. Columbia is gone. For roughly 40 seconds after loss of control, the cabin still holds pressure. The crew is conscious, capable of action, trying to respond. Then depressurization comes. Violent, sudden, final. The crew is incapacitated within seconds. Before they can lower their visors, before they can complete survival procedures, before the vehicle gives them time. The 2008 NASA Crew Survival Investigation Report concluded the event was not survivable by any currently existing capability. At Kennedy Space Center, families wait beside a runway for a shuttle that will never land. Columbia was 16 minutes from home. The Columbia Accident Investigation Board released its report in August 2003. It found the foam strike was the physical cause, but the root cause was deeper. A culture where engineers feared speaking up, where warnings were treated as inconvenience, a broken safety culture.
In a few words, I would say there were two causes to the accident. The first cause was the foam that came off and hit the reinforced carbon-carbon. The second was the loss within NASA of its system of checks and balances.
My comments will be on safety culture. Now, as the Admiral has said, we've met some fantastic and outstanding NASA employees all the way through. If you talk about safety, industrial safety is world-renowned. However, it's our view that the broken safety culture resides in the human spaceflight. NASA had conflicting goals of cost, schedule, and safety, and unfortunately safety lost out in a lot of areas to the mandates of operational requirements.
Engineers who raised the uncertainty were not heard. Managers who needed more information stopped asking for it. A program that had flown more than 100 times had grown so used to surviving that it stopped believing failure was still possible. The board called it the normalization of deviance, the same phrase used to describe Challenger, 17 years apart, same agency,
The shuttle mission
same
will
pattern,
launch.
same
My
kind
God.
of warnings.
There's been an explosion.
Velocity 2,900 feet per second, altitude 9 nautical miles, downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
And as NASA prepares for the moon again, the question is not whether it has the technology.
Now bound for the moon.
The question is whether it has learned to listen. On the 23rd of January, 2003, Rodney Rocha asked one question. Can we petition, beg for outside agency assistance? The question did not reach the people who could have answered it. 23 years later, we are still asking why.